Hey, what's up, friend? Today we're talking about how to avoid debt in your 20s. And that's kind of a difficult topic for me because there are some debts that you absolutely should avoid. I'm gonna teach you how to avoid them. But the reality is when I was in my 20s, I got millions of dollars in debt and they made me millions of dollars. So I'm also gonna show you at the end of the video how to get in the right kind of debt.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! I'm turning dreams into reality. Yeah, it's one shot, now the future is yours. Go!
So by now you've figured it out. Debt is bad, right? I mean, that's what your parents told you. That's what society has told you. It's something that you should avoid. It's something that is wrong. It's something that might even be evil. Is that true? Well, listen, I am going to talk today about how to avoid debt in your 20s, but I'm going to bring up a bigger question, which is this. Debt. Is it a friend or is it a foe? Can it be both? I make you this promise. I am going to show you which debts you need to avoid so that you can have the most successful start to life as possible. But I'm also going to share with you some secrets most people don't know. I'm going to help you understand the debts that I like. In fact, I love. Why would someone love debt? Only if they made you a lot of money. If you're a subscriber and have been watching my channel, you know that I'm a fairly focused human being.
Why is Chubby here staring at me? Focusing.
And on the third day of college, I met the woman that I was gonna marry. And you know what? I had saved up $10,000, but within the next 90 days, check out what I did. I bought a semester of tuition, I bought a car, I bought a diamond ring, and then I ran out of money. So guess what happened? I started going into debt. And when you're in your 20s, guess what research shows is the top 5 things you go into debt for? School, engagement ring, a car, unpaid credit card bills, and personal loans. My security blanket of $10,000 in savings evaporated overnight and I started to panic. So then I used my credit card. And you know what? The first 30 days, I was just spending and buying things.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
There you go. There you go.
And I felt okay until I got to the end of the month and I got this statement in the mail that said, you owe us some money and you need to make this minimum payment of just interest or are you gonna try to pay this thing off? And I started to feel financially screwed and I woke up the next moment as an adult with all this added financial responsibility. Now, if you don't want to get caught in that trap, today I'm going to talk about taking better command of your financials, which will equal a better command of your debt. Now, Business Insider came out with, I think, a really great article recently. It's titled, "The 5 Things I Wish I Had Done at the Age of 20 to Avoid Racking Up $15,000 of Debt." And it starts off with this quote. It says, "If I could give my 20-year-old self advice, I'd tell her to make a budget, get smart about credit, and invest early." Now, the 5 specific things that they recommend are: number 1, understand that credit cards, they're not free. And I had that painful lesson of then being $8,000 in debt and then going more into debt every month because the money I made at my crappy paying job was not enough to pay my bills.
How are you going to pay off $16,162.70 with no job?
So I was using my credit card and I very quickly figured out that is not free money. They want it back, and worse, with interest, and not a little, my friend. Which leads right into number 2, avoid paying interest, because guess what? It stacks up and it becomes very expensive, especially when you're in your 20s and you're not exactly making the most amount of money, right? I mean, in time, you're gonna make more. Number 3, you don't have to go into debt to build credit. You know how many people are like, oh yeah, man, I'm using my credit card so I can establish credit. Listen, use your credit card only to the extent that you can pay it off every month. That will build your credit enough. Number 4, they say that a budget is your best friend. I gotta be honest, a budget never was really my friend, more like a frenemy, right? Like a necessary evil. We need each other, but I don't necessarily really like you. And number 5, the real reason why I shared this article is because I agree, invest early while you still have time. You know, the reality is investing in your 20s is so much more financially powerful than investing in your 40s or your 50s. The earlier you start, the more of this you're gonna pick up. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Money compounds and grows with time. And you can't have money to invest if you're stuck playing the debt game. Now listen, the way I live today, you might think, Kris, you probably have a hard time delaying gratification. My mother-in-law would agree. But the whole reason why I have the money that I have today is because I was so good at delaying gratification in the beginning. More than a nice car, more than a nice house. Do you know what I really wanted? I wanted to know that I was securing the financial future of my dreams so that I could have any choice I've wanted. And guess what? For the last 15 years, I've been financially free. That frugality stems from information that comes out of CNBC's Make It article, where they give you 5 pieces of advice on what you should do in your 20s so you can be debt-free by your 30s. Number 1, make a plan. Like, you have to know how much debt you have, and you gotta make a plan to figure out how am I gonna get out of there. Number 2, you gotta draw lines in the sand. What lines am I not gonna cross? What has to stop? What has to change? Number 3, avoid lifestyle inflation. Guess what? I got a raise. Let's spend more money. Most people live Parkin's Law, which means they spend plus or minus 10% of whatever they make. So if you got like a raise and you doubled your income, you're more than likely to double your spending. Number 4, hustle. This is the time. You're young, you got the energy. Go make stuff happen. Go have a side hustle and ask yourself, how do I spend less? How do I invest more? It's a mindset more than anything that is followed up by action. That's what hustle means. And then number 5, give up what you don't need. I get it. In today's world, I want it now. I want it now. I want it now.
Okay, kid. Give it to me.
But guess what? It's not time. If you'll delay just a little bit and you start following these rules, you can actually accelerate yourself to a point where you can have everything you want times 100. Hey, come on, I want to show you something. There was this article from CNBC that tracked this young man, David, who in 6 months had literally eliminated $18,000 of debt doing this one thing. What he did was he created this rule called zero spend day. And 1 day a week, he just made this promise: I will spend nothing on that day. 6 months later, over $18,000 eliminated. When I was in college, what led to me making millions of dollars started with figuring out how to save up $5,000. And I did it with my own rule. It was called KPPPM. It stood for Cleanse Parents Penny Pinching Month. You know what this is? This is a pile of coins. Now, this does not necessarily look like a lot of money, but I saved $5,000 very carefully over 14 months with a rule that my wife and I created. It was called KPPPM. Stood for Cleanse Parents Penny Pinching Month. Because when they were young in college like we were, they talked about how they had no money, they couldn't rub any pennies together, as the saying goes. And my wife and I made a decision that we were going to live our entire lifestyle on $20 a month. Huge sacrifice. We weren't going to the movies, we weren't renting movies, we were literally saving everything. Now, I'm not talking about Dave Ramsey save as in like fear and worry to get out of debt. I was saving $5,000 because that's all it took to buy my first investment property, which, by the way, got me into a pile of debt. When I sold that house, I made over $65,000. By the way, I used that house to buy my second house and got into a pile of debt. But guess what happened? That house made me $130,000. I did this over and over and over again. But it all happened because my wife and I created a budget and we decided KPPPM month, we are going to live off of just $20 outside of our bills. And that's what we did to get ahead. Another way to watch your spending to avoid debt or get out of debt is by tracking your purchases. Like, do you know how much money you're spending on groceries? Is it the same this week as last week? Is it more than you spent last month? How much on entertainment? How much on eating out? Well, listen, I'm here at my private gym because I want to show you something. I come to this gym every morning with a bunch of buddies and we measure what we do. We track what we do. There's numbers all over the place. These are 5-pounders. These are 25-pounders. I've got 100-pound weights in the corner over there. When I do the elliptical or when I go running or the Stairmaster or the bike, I know what I did before so that I can improve it. So I wear this Fitbit, and it tracks everything. My metabolic rate, I put my food in, I track what I'm eating, I track my exercise. And because I track it, I know what I've done. That's kind of what a budget is. That's what KPPPM was. It was a way to say, we have to have a goal to delay gratification, to know what we're spending so we can set it aside for investing. Now, I'm about to jump in and do a deep dive on how you actually intentionally go into debt to make piles of money. But if I've shared anything so far that is confusing for you, in the link below, I've left my cell phone number. Text me privately. Let me know what your questions are. I want to make sure you understand this. All right, my friend, I hope that helped you understand things that you can do to get yourself out of debt. But there's something way more important that we have to talk about right now. I need you, as my friend and subscriber to this channel, to understand that not all debt is bad debt. I want to talk about how you can leverage debt to actually make yourself some money. Investopedia basically defines good debt against bad debt. And I want you to understand it's confusing because there's one word, but it means two totally opposite different things.
If every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right. I will do the opposite.
A good debt is a loan that has the potential to increase your net worth. Or in other words, a good debt makes you money. You want this debt. A bad debt involves borrowing money to purchase depreciating assets. In simplified terms, you buy crap that goes down in value. I get it. I know this sounds super confusing. So let me make it super simple. Let's just say that you and I rendezvous at the airport, we get in a private jet, and we're off to Nicaragua. Deep in the jungles, there's this factory. It's been there for 50 years. And the owner is deciding that it's time to retire and they want to sell it. Now, this factory makes sunglasses that they sell all over the world, and they have a track record of making $50,000 a month of profit. But they only want $1 million because it's in Nicaragua. So you're thinking to yourself, wow, would I really buy that factory? You walk into the bank and guess what? They say, muchacho, we will give you $1 million, but it's gonna cost you $20,000 a month. And you're thinking, this sounds stupid. I'm gonna go $1 million in debt. It's gonna cost me $20,000 a month. But remember, the factory makes $50,000 a month. So you decide to go into debt. You're $1 million underwater. But guess what you now have? An asset that makes you $50,000 a month. You subtract the loan of $20,000 a month, and you're left off with $30,000 extra every single month. Would you do that deal? So how do you know if a debt is good or bad? Well, Investopedia says, determine whether or not a debt is good or bad sometimes depends on an individual's financial situation as well as other factors. I don't agree with that. If you want to know whether it's good or bad, the question is, does it make money? Yes or no? Will it reliably make you more money than the debt costs? If so, there's a good chance you should do a deep dive on that. Let's test your knowledge. It's time to play good debt or bad debt. And first we have real estate. Is this good or is this bad? The answer, it depends. With real estate, if you buy this home to live in, let me ask you, is it costing you something? Yes. Is it making you money? No. So guess what? It's actually a bad debt. It's an asset. It can go up in value. It can give you benefits, but technically, this is not an asset. It's not a good debt. However, if this is in fact an investment property, or maybe you did buy it for yourself, but you rent the other rooms. If you are actually making more money than it costs, then you actually have real estate as a good debt. By the way, I love real estate debt so much that I buy 15 to 30 homes every month, and my goal is to own as much debt as I possibly can. So just for the official record, some debts are good, and if they're good, you want them. How much? as much as you can possibly have, because the more debt you have, the more money you make. Here's the next one. Using a credit card to start a business. Good debt or bad debt? Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, there's a lot of things you can use a credit card for that are really stupid.
That's stupid.
As in, anytime you whip out your credit card to buy something that loses money and doesn't make you money, that's a bad debt. However, using your credit card to start a business, if you have a business that can confidently make money as you spend money, then this credit card is now a tool for making money, even if it has a high interest rate. Do you know how much money I have made with credit cards? In fact, I would recommend that you have at least 2, 3, or 4 credit cards and use them wisely and increase the limits to wait for the moment when a business opportunity strikes, a side hustle presents itself, a real estate opportunity where you can use some of that credit card debt to actually finance an asset that makes you way more money than the credit card costs. Here's the next one. Buying a car. A good debt or a bad debt? In 99% of all situations, this is, my friends, a bad debt. Because the car doesn't make you money. It costs you money. You have to put gas in it. You've got to pay insurance for it. You got to actually pay the car loan for it. However, if you're my entrepreneurial brother, he buys cars and things like this, throws it up on Turo, rents them out, and makes money. In that situation, it's actually a good debt. But Kris, I'm actually financing the car so that I can build my credit. If it doesn't make you money, you might be building your credit, but it is not making you money. Hence, it is still a bad debt. In fact, my brother's the only person I know that has created an effective workaround on this. You know that company Turo, where you can basically list your vehicles and let other people rent them? He finds cars specifically to buy on credit card, and that creates a payment. And you know what he does? He rents them out to people and makes more money renting them out than the cost of the credit card. He found a way to take a typical bad debt and actually turn it into a good debt. Again, it comes back to this question. Can you turn it into making more money than the cost of the debt? I got one more for you. This one is college. Oof. Good debt, bad debt. The world will tell you that education is always worth investing in. I say that investing in yourself is always the right move as long as you can monetize it, right? Think about it for just a moment. College, if you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, you want to go 40, 50, $100,000, $200,000 in debt for a degree that there's a 70% chance you won't use in the real world, I'm not sure that's the smartest path anymore. However, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, there are plenty of professions where you have to go to college. And in that case, that, my friends, is a very good debt. If you get a college degree that you can't monetize, that's a bad debt. So it's all context. The number one question I get on this channel about debt is this question. Should I get out of debt before I invest? I want to show you something. Over here is my wife's rock collection, or at least a part of it. And this room contains tens of thousands of dollars of semi-precious stones, fluorite and gibberellite, and I could make up all sorts of stuff. This isn't my passion, this is my wife's. None of these were bought with a credit card. Do you know why? Because it doesn't make money. I use cash. Do you know where I got the cash to buy all of this crap? Look at this. This wall is made of salt from 5,000 feet underground in the Himalayas. It's underground sea salt. It has magical woo-woo properties for my wife. She sits in here and just like meditates, and she absolutely loves it. For me, it doesn't really do anything, but I love to buy this stuff for my wife because it makes her happy. This stuff is not bought with credit. It's not bought with a credit card. It's bought from my investments that make me money. You want to know the answer to whether you should get out of debt or whether you should invest first? I'm going to tell you right now, Dave Ramsey's going to hate me for dropping this one, and probably a dozen other people, but I believe you should always invest before you get out of debt. Unless your debts have like ridiculously high interest rates where like Guido and the leg breakers are going to come by and remove a couple of shins if you don't pay them off. Unless you have loan sharks or bad people after you because you took money from the wrong people. If it's just credit cards, If it's manageable, I would rather take a chunk of money and throw it down on investment. For example, let's just say that you have $10,000 that you've worked your butt off to save. You have $10,000 of credit card debt. You have a good job and you're managing that debt. You're not getting behind and you're thinking to yourself, I'm gonna take this 10 grand and I'm gonna pay off the credit card. You'd feel really good for a moment. But you know what you will lose in the moment you do that? All of the time it took to get that 10 grand. I would rather take that money and go buy a house and double that money in the next 5 years and then be able to pay off my debt and have the 10,000 left over. In fact, I usually use my debts to finance more debts to finance more debts, which means more income, more assets, more net worth, more cash flow. And if I just lost you, you got to click the link below and connect with me and my team because I will show you how to use debt to make a lot of money. So Kris, you're telling me that you want me to go into debt? Yep, and let me share the 5 debts you should get right now. The first one, OPM, other people's money. You should be accessing other people's money and asking yourself, where can I put this money that will make me more than the cost of the debt? Like, I can borrow $5,000 for $200 a month. Can you put that $5,000 somewhere that makes more than $200 a month reliably? Credit cards. These are tools for making money. They can also be weapons for slaying your financial pocketbook if you make dumb decisions. Use your credit cards wisely for making money. A home equity line of credit. You own real estate, in time it's going to appreciate in value, or maybe you got a discount and you got a deal on it. You should go back to the bank and say, give me some of that through a home equity line of credit. It's a free loan to set up, and then you have a pile of money that comes from the house that you can use to buy another asset to accelerate your money. Private investors or strategic borrowing. Both of these are simply additional ways to access money. You should always be thinking, where can I borrow money to buy something that makes even more money? You get in that game, my friend, and that is the path to financial freedom. Visual capitalists created this super dope chart. What they did is they superimposed what baby boomers did with their money, what Generation Xers did with their money, and what millennials are doing with their money. And they could be putting it in real estate, paying down debt, education, stock market, 401ks, starting their own business. And look at the colors. The red color right here is what baby boomers, people 55 and older, did. Look at what they did. They did so much to get out of debt. They probably did that because they remember from their parents what the Great Depression was like. And it was this fear and scarcity of debt is bad, debt is bad, debt is bad. And they would put their money in CDs. Smart, right? Put it in a bank and earn 1%. Whoop-de-doo, right? You're actually losing at the rate of inflation. But then you get to Generation X. And they start saying, no, we got to save money for my child's education. And they started putting less money in 401ks and IRAs. But let's talk right now about the millennials. Huge shift in financial spending. They're saying, screw the debt pay down. That is not where I'm putting my money. So they're putting less of it there. They're actually putting more of it into their own business. They're putting it into virtual currency, which means they're thinking about investing and getting ahead and thinking of money in new ways. They also put more money into education. These spending habits are changing, and there's definitely been a shift in the last 50 years from hurry, get out of debt to what I'm talking about, which is, wait a second here. How can I use debt to make millions of dollars? How can I use debt to finance the life that I want? I hope if you're watching today's video, you're having an epiphany like, light bulb! Oh my gosh, Kris, I can make money from debt, but I want you to understand something. I didn't invent this. J.B. Shea was saying this over 200 years ago as a French economist. He said the entrepreneur shifts economic resources out of an area of lower and into an area of higher productivity and greater yield. In other words, move money from low returns to high returns, or borrow cheap money and earn big rewards with it, and you get to keep the difference. Are you curious about how you can go into debt to make money? Or do you have some questions of how to get out of the wrong kind of debt? I'm going to do something I rarely do. Go ahead and click the link below. I'm giving you access today to my personal cell phone. just go ahead and text me, reach out, ask me a question, and hopefully I can help you get out of the bad kind of debt and accelerate you getting into the right kind of debt so that you can get on your path towards financial freedom. Hey, what's up, friend? Check it out. So today we're talking about avoiding debt in your 20s.